It gives me immense pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker for the next session, Dr. G. Srinivas. Dr. G. Srinivas is a professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at Gitam University, Visakhapatnam. With over 20 years of experience, Dr. Srinivas has made significant contributions to the fields of computer science and engineering. Dr. Srinivas holds a PhD in Computer Science and Systems Engineering with a specialization in image processing from Andhra University. In his illustrious career, Dr. Srinivas has guided multiple research scholars, with 3 already awarded with their PhD degrees and several others under the supervision across reputed institutions like Andhra University and Gitam University. He is also an accomplished author with a textbook titled Handbook on Android App Development, published in 2020, reflecting his dedication to advancing technological education. Dr. Srinivas' research contributions include 35 papers in international journals indexed by Scopus and SCI, along with 12 conference publications. As a reviewer for esteemed journals and conferences organized by SACE, Springer, and IEEE, his insights are widely recognized in the academic community. Beyond academics, Dr. Srinivas is an award-winning educator, having received the Best Teacher Award from Gitam University in 2010. Dear all, please join me in welcoming Dr. G. Srinivas. Sir, we welcome you, sir.
Thank you, madam. So thank you, madam. Please allow me to share my PPT, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Just 1 minute, sir.
Yes, sir. You can share, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Suresh garu. So, good evening to all the participants. And today, the topic for discussion is ensemble models for developing AI-powered healthcare applications. And in this case, in this particular concept, before going to depth in this topic, first of all, we'll discuss some kind of theory concepts in this particular ensemble models. So, and what is the need for us to use these ensemble models in machine learning? So I think most of the audience knows that what is the importance of machine learning, all these things. So in case of machine learning, so I think everybody knows that there are 6 different kinds of steps that are there in the flow of machine learning. The first process is nothing but whenever you start applying machine learning algorithm, or whenever you want to apply some kind of machine learning algorithms, the first and foremost thing is that we have to collect the data. The second step is nothing but after collecting the data, we have to pre-process the data. So means sometimes whenever you are collecting the data, definitely there are some values that are missing in some particular columns or rows. So those values we have to pre-process. So either you need to delete the entire row, or you need to fill some kind of 0 values in that particular column. So this is what we are going to call it as pre-processing. Because I'm a little bit faster in this particular concept, because our discussion is mainly on ensembling techniques. Prior to that, I want to give some kind of flavor on machine learning. And the third point is nothing but whatever the machine learning algorithm you have selected, you have to use that particular machine learning algorithm. This is the third step in machine learning process. And the fourth step is nothing but once after selecting the machine learning algorithm, you need to train the model with the data we have taken. Suppose mostly universally acceptable ratio is nothing but 70:30 or 80:20. So we will use in a ratio called as 80:20 or 70:30, or in some applications we will use 75:25. Like that, we are going to do the train and test split. So the fourth step in case of machine learning algorithms is nothing but training the model. And fifth one is nothing but evaluating the model. And the sixth step is nothing but the prediction, what we are actually doing with machine learning. So these are the basic 6 steps which are in the flow of machine learning algorithms. So the first one is we have to collect the data. The second step is nothing but we have to pre-process the data. The third step is nothing but whatever the machine learning algorithm we have selected, we have to apply that machine learning algorithm. And the fourth step is nothing but training the model. Fifth step is nothing but evaluating the model. And the last step is nothing but the prediction with the model, with whatever the model we have selected. So these are the 6 steps which we are actually using in the flow of machine learning algorithm. But after using machine learning algorithm, there are some kind of challenges which we are facing. The major challenges are nothing but, so I will mainly concentrate on 4 major challenges. The first major challenge is nothing but the problem of overfitting, and the second challenge is nothing but the problem of one minute. So the second problem is nothing but underfitting. And the third one is nothing but sometimes we may face some kind of implementation problems when the data grows. And fourth problem is nothing but whenever sometimes we are using one kind of machine learning model, but after that, in some cases, in future, definitely the data goes on increases. In such case, whatever the machine learning model we have selected, that may not be suitable for the growing data. So these are the basic underlying problems which we are facing with machine learning algorithms. The first problem, and in this ensembling techniques, we are going to address the problem of overfitting as well as underfitting. So mostly with the help of neural networks, we can definitely eliminate the problem of underfitting, but still there is a problem of overfitting even though if you use neural networks also. So here in this case, mainly we are concentrating on overfitting as well as underfitting. What is the problem of overfitting as well as underfitting? So overfitting means, suppose you have some 100 records so in the data. So actually we are going to select our training and testing split as 80:20. So 80 records I am using for training and 20 records I am using for testing, because these 20 records are also called as unseen data, because these 20 records the machine has not seen because we are training our machine learning model only with 80 records. And what is the problem of underfitting is that whenever your model is trained with 80 records out of the 100 available, if you ask any question from this 80, the machine learning algorithm is going to answer the question correctly. But if you ask any question from this 20, because this is not seen by the model, that is the reason why if you ask any question from this particular 20, definitely your machine learning algorithm cannot answer the question, because it is the machine learning algorithm has not seen the data. Means your model is more prone towards the training data. Means your model works effectively, efficiently on the training data, but it fails to work properly on the test data. Unseen data, it fails to work properly on the unseen data. That is the reason why this particular problem is going to be called as overfitting, because the model is overfitted on the training data. So whereas coming to the case of underfitting, if we have 100 records, out of the 100 records, 80 records I'm using for training and 20 records I'm using for the testing. So after training with 80 records also, if your model was unable to answer the question, if you ask any question from this 80, whereas in this case, it is answering the question correctly when you are asking a question from 80 training data. And it is unable to answer the question correctly if you ask a question from the unseen data. But here the case is that even though it was trained with 80 records, if you ask any question from that 80, it may not answer the question correctly. So means it doesn't work properly on the training data as well as testing data. That is the reason why we are going to call it as underfitting, underfitted. So here it is overfitted towards the training data, whereas it is underfitting means it doesn't work properly on the training data as well as the testing data. So these are the major two problems which we will see in machine learning. Overfitting means high variance and underfitting means high bias. So I think mostly we will explain these concepts with the help of variance as well as bias. So high variance is nothing but your overfitting problem and low variance is nothing but your underfitting problem. So these are the two major issues which leads us towards this ensembling techniques. So because till date, mostly we will use machine learning algorithms, which will use solely, because whenever I have a problem and I have a data set, I use it to apply a machine learning algorithm. So that machine learning algorithm may be a linear regression, logistic regression, or anything. So, but what is ensembling technique is that even though if we apply a particular machine learning algorithm, most of the cases we are going to get a problem of either overfitting or underfitting. So to avoid this particular thing, we are going to use some kind of models called as ensembling techniques. Ensembling techniques means it is the kind of technique where we are going to apply the combination of machine learning models. But the procedures may be different. We will see all the procedures one by one. what actually this ensembling technique. So the intention is that here we have these two major problems. Along with these two major problems, there are some other problems also, because implementation issues. When your data goes on increases, suppose if you want to execute the problem, or if you want to predict a particular share value of a particular company. So, but for this prediction, we require the data of that particular company from the last 3 years or 4 years, because it is a huge data. So, but whatever the computational devices we are having, those are not that much efficient to handle this particular data. In such case, definitely we require high performance computational devices. But it is not possible for us to buy a high computational device, because somewhat we are fortunate that we are getting 8 GB RAM and 1 TB hard disk for a cost of 50,000 or 40,000 i3 or i5 processor. But it is not the case in the early 2000, because in early 2000 it is very difficult for us to buy a system or laptop with 8 GB RAM and 1 TB hard disk. In those days, the cost will be around 1.5 lakhs or 1.2 lakhs. But right now we are getting the same configuration with i5 processor or i7 processor with for 60 to 70,000. Because in the early 2000s, we have only core to dual or dual core processors. So in those days, the cost of that dual core or core to dual is nearly 1.5 lakhs or 1.2 lakhs with the same configuration of 8 GB as well as 1 TB hard disk. So as the years goes on increases, definitely the computational devices we are getting at a cheaper cost. So that is the reason we cannot consider this as a major problem. And anyhow, we are having high performance computational devices also we are getting. So that is the reason why mainly we have to concentrate on this overfitting as well as underfitting. So in order to avoid this particular problem, we have one solution that is called as ensembling technique. There are 5 different kinds of ensembling techniques that are available. The first one is nothing but OTing. The first ensembling technique is nothing but OTing. The second one is nothing but bootstrap aggregation. This can also be called as bagging. And the third one is nothing but random forest. And the fourth one is nothing but boosting. And the last one is nothing but, fifth one is nothing but stacking. Fifth one is stacking. So these are the major five ensembling techniques. We will see one after the other all these things. If possible, I will show how healthcare applications, the accuracy will increase with this bagging or boosting technique. Because I want to explain all these concepts with some kind of coding. At the end, we will see the coding. But prior to that, we have to discuss about all these topics one by one. So the first one is nothing but voting classifier. Basically, in machine learning algorithm, we have 2 different kinds of problems when we are dealing with supervised learning algorithm. One is classification and the second one is regression. I think most of the people in this particular meeting knows the basic difference between classification and regression. In case of classification, the output is discrete. As it is a supervised learning algorithm, we mostly work with labeled data. I think labeled data is the data in which we have a target attribute along with the independent attributes. So whatever may be the data set we have, in each and every data set, we have 2 major things. One is the rows and the second one is the columns. Is it right or not? In these columns, there are 2 different categories. One is independent and the other one is target. So target means based on this only we are going to do the classification or regression problem. So this target attribute, whenever your data consists of this particular target attribute along with the independent attribute, we can say that particular data is a labeled data. So here there are 2 different kinds of problems. One is regression and the second one is classification. In case of regression, the output will be always continuous. Whenever your output is continuously changing, definitely we have to prefer regression. But when your output is fixed, so it is a binary classification, means you will have either 0 or 1, true or false, yes or no. Those kind of problems we can use simply for we'll use classification for those kind of problems. So this is what is the difference between regression as well as classification. Whenever your output changes with respect to time, means if your output is continuously changing, then we have to select regression kind of machine learning algorithms. When your output is fixed, either it is true or false, yes or no, 0 or 1, in such case, definitely we have to use classification kind of machine learning algorithms. So is it clear or not? But still, till time we are discussing about only the machine learning algorithms. we are applying at a time only one machine learning algorithm we are applying. But here in this particular case, we are discussing about ensembling techniques where we have to apply multiple machine learning algorithms, but in a different way. So voting algorithm, actually what is voting? In this particular voting algorithm, what will happen is that there are two different kinds of things. So there are two things, but anyhow, this voting algorithm, you all people will understand when we are discussing about bagging techniques. So that is the reason why I will straight away go to bagging. But prior to that, what is actually voting classifier? There are two different kinds of voting classifiers are available. One is hard voting and the second one is soft voting. What is actually hard voting and what is actually soft voting? Suppose whenever you have a particular data set, if you please give that particular data set to three different kinds of machine learning models. There is no restriction that you have to use only 3 machine learning models. You can use any number of machine learning models. So whatever the data set I have, first of all, I will give this data set to machine learning model M1. Suppose I am considering this the first machine learning algorithm as KNN, and the second machine learning algorithm I am considering as logistic regression, and the third machine learning algorithm I am using is decision tree. So means whatever may be the data set I have, I am giving that data set to 3 different kinds of machine learning models. And after training this particular machine learning model with the data set what I have, I am asking one question to the machine learning model because I am testing my models. When I am testing my model with a particular question, the first model predicts the output as 1. The second model also predicts the output as 1. And the third model predicts the output as 0. After training with some kind of data or after training with some number of records, the machine learning model 1 declares the testing output as 1. Machine learning model 2 also decides the output as 1. But machine learning model 3 decides the output as 0. Then in such case, on the same data set, we have applied 3 machine learning models. So in such case, what is actually hard voting means out of these 3 options, because on the same record is given to 3 different machine learning models for testing. The first model predicted the output as 1. The second model predicted the output as 1. The third model predicted the output as 0, because you can also assume that the data set is a diabetic data set. 1 means the patient is diabetic. 0 means the patient is non-diabetic. So out of these 3 outputs, 1 is dominating. So we will declare the output as 1. So because as we have 3 options, suppose if you have 5 or 6 machine learning algorithms you have used, out of that 5 and 6 machine learning algorithms, whatever may be the maximum output we are getting with the machine learning models, we will decide the answer as that. For that particular record, the output will be what? 1. But coming to the case of soft machine learning algorithms, what will happen is that, so actually we are going to predict this particular machine. Whenever you are checking the models with some number of records as test records, 80% of records it is giving as 1 and 20% of records it is giving as 0. Similarly, model 2 predicts 90% for 90% of records the output is 1, 10% of records the output is 0. Similarly, M3, 20% 1 and 80% 0. What actually do is that in this case, probability will plays the major role, because for the first case, one output is 0.8. For the second case, that one output is 0.9. And the third case, the one output is 0.2. Altogether 0.8 plus 0.9, 1.7 plus 1.2, 1.9 divided by 3, it will comes around 6.63 means 63%. And the rest of the case, 20 plus 10, 30 plus 80 means 110 divided by 3, it comes around 36%. So soft computing means we are going to take the help of the probabilities, whereas hard computing means whatever may be the output of that particular record, out of that outputs, whatever may be the maximum value we are getting as an output, that will be the final output. So this is what is called as voting classifier. So voting classifier is mainly used to decide the output for a particular record when that particular record was given to more than one model for testing. Is it clear? So hard voting means we will simply check each and for a particular record, whatever may be the output by the machine learning model 1, 2 and 3. Out of that, whatever may be the maximum times the output repeated, that we will consider as our output. But here in this case, we are going to take the help of the probabilities to decide the output. So this is what is called as voting classifier. So mostly either we will use the maximum vote or we will use the averaging kind of thing. So this is what is called as averaging, and this is what is called as max vote classifier, max voting. So you can take any one of this. Either you can use maximum or you can use average. But some kind of problems we will use maximum, and some kind of problems we will use average. Mostly for classification kind of problems, we will use hard voting, and for regression kind of problems, we will use soft computing. Because the data is continuously changing, that is the reason why we have to take the average. So for regression, mostly we will use soft voting ending. Because for regression, we are going to use soft voting classifier, and for soft voting, not classifier. And here in case of classification, we are going to use hard voting. So this is what is called as voting classifier. Voting classifier means here till time we have applied only one machine learning algorithm. But here we are applying more than one machine learning algorithm. That is the reason why we are calling it as an ensembling model. So here I have 3 machine learning models, and I am considering the output from all the 3 machine learning models. From that output, I am going to decide what will be the final output for that particular record. So that is the reason why this particular technique comes in the category of ensembling model. So this is the first technique which is going to be called as what? Voting classifier. Now we have to discuss about the next one. So now we have to discuss about the advanced ensembling techniques. As voting classifier are not regular ensembling techniques. Now in case of advanced ensembling techniques, we have to discuss about bagging, boosting, and then stacking. So these are the 3 different kinds of ensembling techniques which we will discuss in our coming slides. The first one is called as what? Bagging. The first one is bagging. What is actually bagging? So the name itself is telling that. I will explain you with one particular diagram. So this is our original data set. So this is our original data set. What actually we will do is that here what is majorly ensembling means we will use combination of machine learning algorithms. We will use more machine learning algorithms. In some cases, we will use the same kind of machine learning algorithms, and in some kind of ensembling techniques, we will use different machine learning algorithms. But mostly in case of bagging and boosting, we will use the same kind of machine learning algorithm for multiple times. Suppose this is my data set. What I will do is that I will divide this particular data set into some kind of groups. I will divide this data set into some kind of groups. Firstly, out of the available, suppose I have 1000 records altogether. Out of these 1000 records, I am going to take only 300 records randomly. That 300 records I am going to give it to model number 1. So here I am applying this particular data set to model 1. So that model may be, suppose I will take decision tree. Here I am applying a machine learning model called as decision tree. So out of this 1000 records, I am taking 300 records for training this particular model M1. After this, I am using a technique called as resampling with replacement. Means resampling with replacement means after training this model with the number of records, again I will keep all the records in the original database. From that, again it will become 1000. From that 1000, again I am selecting the next 300. Mostly in some cases, some records which are available for model 1, those are also available for model 2. Because we are using a technique called as resampling with replacement. After training the first model, again we are keeping all the records in the original data set. That is the reason we are calling it as resampling with replacement. Now I am training my second model, and this is also decision tree. Again I will keep all the records in my original data set. I will train this model with again 300 records. So now all the 3 machine learning algorithms, because here there is no restriction that we have to use only 3 machine learning models. You can use 100 machine learning models or 100 decision trees. That will be decided by the hyperparameters. When you are seeing the code, we have a component called as estimators. In that estimators, if you describe that estimators as 100, means you are using 100 decision trees. Instead of, if here I wrote only 3 machine learning models, but there you are applying 100 machine learning models for ensembling. Now, after training the model, what we will see is that whatever may be the prediction with the test data from the first model, you will get here. And whatever may be the prediction from the second model, you will get here. And whatever may be the predictions from third model, you will get here. Suppose you have a particular record. Whatever may be the record, you have a particular record with which you tested the first model. First model decides its output as 1. Second model decides its output as 0. And third model, it is divided the output as 1. So here the output is 1, here the output is 0, Here the output is 1 for one particular record. In such case, after getting the output, we will give all these outputs to voting classifier. Voting classifier. This voting classifier is going to consider the maximum option value. Here the maximum means the first record, the machine learning algorithm 1 predicted its output as 1 and 3 also predicted its output as 1, but 2 predicted its output as 0. That is the reason why we got 1 for 2 times. So the maximum is nothing but 1. So we will conclude for this particular record the output as 1. Likewise, we will do for all the records with which we are going to test our machine learning models. So this is the first ensembling technique, which is going to be called as bagging. Why we call this as bagging means whatever may be the original data set we have divided that original data set into some sort of bags. This is one bag, this is one bag, and this is one bag. But here we are using one particular kind of technique which is called as resampling with replacement. Once after selecting one part of data from the original data set for first model, again we are simply replacing all the records into the original data set. Is it clear or not? So this is what is called the first technique called as bagging. I will explain one more time. So this is my original data set. Let us assume that this is 1000 records. So this is an ensembling technique which we are going to call it as bagging. So out of this 1000 technique, 1000 records what I have, I will give some 300 records to the first model and I will train the first model. After training the first model with the 300 records, I am using a technique called as resampling with replacement. So means I will place again all these 300 records in the original data set and I will not placing. Again, we are considering some records which were already trained, with which we trained the model 1. Because whatever may be the training process we are doing for machine learning algorithm 1, machine learning algorithm 2, machine learning algorithm 3, some records from the database are common. Because the same machine learning algorithm models are trained with some records which are unique, which are with which all the 3 models are trained. So here we trained our model with 300 records. Here also we trained our model with 300 records. And here also we trained our model with 300 records. But some records may be common for all the 3 models because we are using a technique called as resampling with replacement. So after training the model, we are going to test our models. Suppose if we are using some 100 records for testing, out of 100 records, we will select for one record, the output from the machine learning model 1 is 1, machine learning 2 is 0, algorithm 2 is, the output from machine learning algorithm 3 is 1. So in such case, after getting the outputs from the machine learning models, here we are applying ensembling classifier, means here we are using voting classifier. So this voting classifier is going to be, because you can apply 2 classifiers, one is average and the second one is max classifier, max voting. But here in this is the case, we have the problem which is going to be called as a classification problem. That is the reason why I'm going to select a voting classifier which is called as max voting classifier. So out of these 3 options, one we got for 2 records. So for one record with which we tested our 3 models, the first model and third model predicted the output as 1, whereas the second model predicted the output as 0. So here we are using max vote classifier. That is the reason why we will conclude our output as 1. Likewise, we have to repeat the process for all the test records and we will predict the output for each and every record. So the difference is that here, instead of giving the entire output to one machine learning model, we are giving the data to 3 different models and we are considering the output of each and every model, and that output we are giving to a voting classifier. With the help of voting classifier, we are going to decide what will be the final output for that particular record. But here in this case, it is a classification problem. That is the reason why I am using a classifier which is called as max vote classifier. So this is the technique which is going to be called as ensembling problem. Because here I already told you that the major issue is nothing but overfitting. Overfitting means the model was trained properly, but during the testing we are getting some kind of problems. So if we are getting any problem with one model, that problem will be resolved by the other models. Suppose even though here if you see model 2 has not predicted the output correctly, but model 1 and model 3 has predicted the output correctly. So because this is the phase which we are discussing as the testing phase, because overfitting is the problem we are facing when we are testing with the unseen data. So if one model suffers in predicting the output correctly, the other two models will help to predict the answer correctly. That is the reason why whatever may be the disadvantages we are getting with the machine learning algorithm procedure till now what we have used, it will be resolved by using the combination of one or two machine learning models. This is the technique which we are going to call it as a bagging technique. And one more thing is that in case of bagging technique, we are applying the machine learning models parallelly, not serially. We are applying the model parallelly at a time. We are not applying the first model, then second model, then third model. No question. We are applying or we are training all the three models parallelly. It is a parallel kind of process in which all the models are trained at once. So this is the technique which we are going to call it as a bagging technique. So mostly 80% of researchers who are working in NLP problems or who are working in Twitter data problems, they are using this particular ensembling techniques in order to increase their accuracy. Definitely, if you have the problem of overfitting, your accuracy will be reduced. But if you use ensembling technique, it is going to increase the accuracy. So this is one solution to increase the accuracy of a particular model. Now, the next one is nothing but random forest. It is also similar to your bagging technique. It is also one kind of ensembling technique, because random forest is a technique which is a combination of. So I'm sorry, I forgot to explain you one more thing. This can also be called as bootstrap aggregation. Bootstrap aggregation. So here what actually you are doing is that whatever with the data set you have, you are training all the models with that particular data set. Not with all the records. Suppose some 70% or 80% of records, you are training the models with a technique called as resampling with replacement. But here, why we are this process of training the model with training the data with all the models is nothing but bootstrap. This particular process. This process is called as bootstrap. But after getting the results from all the team models, you are doing the aggregation. So like what we have done in our DBMS. So the first process, we are giving the same kind of data for training to all the models. And once after getting the prediction from all the models, from the predictions, we are going to conclude the final prediction. So this particular process is going to be called as bootstrap, whereas this particular thing is called as aggregation. So this entire procedure is going to be called as bootstrap aggregation. So the first one. So random forest is another technique which is almost similar to your bagging technique. But in this case, a random forest is nothing but it is a combination of decision trees. So I think you might know the concept of decision trees, where here random forest is nothing but it is a combination of so many decision trees. So how many number of decision trees you will use, it is your wish. So random subsets are created from the original data set. Same and bootstrapping. Whatever we have seen in the previous case, we will do the same kind of procedure here also. Here, whatever may be the data set we have, we will give that data set into multiple decision trees. Multiple decision trees. So this is what is called as bootstrap. And after prediction from all these things, we will give it to a voting classifier. So from this voting classifier, we are going to conclude the final answer. So this process is called as bootstrap, and this process is going to be called as aggregation. Bootstrap aggregation. Random forest is also following the same kind of techniques. But some cases, the final prediction is calculated by averaging the predictions from all the decision trees. When you are considering the averaging, definitely it will be the problem of regression. When you are considering the maximum vote classifier, then it is the problem of classification. So next technique which we have to discuss is nothing but the boosting technique. What is actually boosting? So even though some places where the overfitting with bagging has not been reduced, another alternative is nothing but boosting technique. So here, whatever may be the classifiers we are having, all these classifiers are going to be called as weak classifiers, because we are using weak learners or weak classifiers. We are giving the data set to all the models parallelly, because bagging is a technique which is a parallel technique. We are giving the data to the model parallelly. So at a time, we are giving the data to each and every model, and each and every model is going to be called as a weak classifier or weak learner. But in case of boosting, what will happen? I will tell you with clear example. So here, initially, we have a data set, and that data set we are giving to a model. So whatever may be the data set we have, we are giving that entire data set to a particular model called as, suppose let us assume that this is a decision tree or logical regression, logistic regression, whatever it may be. So you have a data set and you have given that particular data set to a classifier. The classifier, what it will do, it will, after training the model with some number of records, first we will do the training of the model with the records, then we are going to test our model. Because initially, whenever I apply machine learning algorithm, I basically follow a relation called as, a ratio called as 8:20. But mostly people will prefer, some people will prefer the ratio as 70:30, and some people will prefer that ratio as 75:25. But please don't go less than 70:30, because you may not get the proper results and the machine may face the problem of underfitting also. So this is the data set which we have, and we have trained our model with that particular data set. After training that particular model with some kind of records with the machine learning model, then we have to test the model with the other records. When we are trying to test our model, the machine learning algorithm is going to pick these particular samples as correct, and it is going to predict these samples as wrong. Suppose I have nearly 100 records. Out of that 100 records, I have used 80 records for training, and the remaining rest of the 20 records I am using for testing. So out of this 20 records, nearly some 6 records output got predicted correctly, and 14 records output was not predicted correctly. So in case of boosting technique, or in case of boosting technique, what we will use that, whatever may be the outputs that were not, whatever may be the records for which the output was not classified correctly, we will give high weight to them. So we will give high weight to them, and those records will be given as an input to the next machine learning models. Because our intention is that the model should predict the output correctly. We have to increase the test accuracy in order to reduce the overfitting problem. So whatever may be the records that were not predicted correctly, the weightage of the records will be more, and those records will be given as an input to the next machine learning model. So, and out of those records, and again we will test our model, and again the machine learning model is predicted some outputs correctly and some outputs incorrectly. And whatever may be the outputs that are not given correctly, those outputs will be again given high priority. Along with the regular data set, these records are also given as an input to the machine learning model for training. And if you test that particular model with the records, again it will predict some outputs as correctly and some outputs as wrongly. So we have to repeat this particular process until the number of records which are classified correctly will be reduced to 0 or almost 1 or 2. So if you have multiple number of records, suppose if you have 200 test records, our intention is that at the end of machine learning, application of machine learning models, your final test data which was classified wrongly will be either 0 or almost 1 or 2. That is the intention. But this particular process is not a parallel process, it is a sequential process. Because whatever may be the output that was not predicted, because we are not simultaneously applying or giving the data to all the models at a time. So because here what we are doing is that we are only training the first model. If we are training the first model, and after training the first model, we are testing only the first model. Whatever may be the outputs that were, whatever may be the test data records that were classified correctly, we are not giving high priority. And the records which were not classified correctly, we will give more priority. And with that records, again, our machine learning model will be trained. This time we are using the next decision tree. And again, some records will be classified correctly and some records will be classified wrongly. And whatever may be the records that were classified wrongly, that will be given high priority, and with that the third model is going to be trained. So again, we are going to test with some records, and the predictions, the records which were predicted correctly will be given less priority, and the records which were not predicted correctly will be given high priority. And we will apply the next model. Likewise, we have to repeat this particular thing until the test record, almost all the test records were classified correctly. That is the reason why when we are writing the code for this particular one, we have a hyperparameter called estimator, where we are going to give this as 100. Means definitely we are going to apply 100 machine learning algorithms, 100 decision trees with the help of a technique called as boosting. Here the technique is going to be called as boosting. Means whatever may be the records for which the output was not correctly classified, those will be given as an input to the next level. So boosting, because we are increasing or we are boosting those records which were not classified. So, and second level, we will give along with the training data, these records also to the machine learning model. Again, some will be predicted correctly and some will be predicted incorrectly. So the ultimate motto is that we have to get an output where almost all the test records were classified correctly. So that is the intention behind this particular technique called as boosting. So the major difference between bagging and boosting is nothing but bagging is a sequential technique, whereas bagging is a parallel technique and boosting is a serial technique. Sequential, this is sequential, this is not parallel. Whereas in case of the previous one, bagging is a parallel technique where we are giving the data set to all the models at a time. It is parallel, whereas here in case of boosting, it is sequential. So there are so many boosting classifiers that are available in the market. The first and foremost boosting classifier that was developed is nothing but AdaBoost. There are so many other boosting techniques are also available. You can see here. So you are training the model with one particular data set. Whatever the records that are classified correctly, there is no problem. Not classified, again, we are combining with the data set. That entire data set is going to be given to the second model. Some will be predicted correctly and some will be predicted wrongly. Whatever the records that were predicted wrongly, again, they are combined with the original data set and will be given as a training data to the model. So we have to repeat this process. It is a sequential process. So we have to repeat the process until almost all the records are classified correctly. So these are the major difference between random forest or AdaBoost are nothing but bagging or bootstrapping. So random forest, bagging or bootstrapping or AdaBoost. So the basic difference between these two techniques. So bagging is nothing but a parallel learning process, whereas boosting is nothing but a sequential learning process. So here all the models are independent, here where the models are dependent, because the output of the input for the second model depends upon the output of the first model, because one model is dependent on the other model in case of boosting, whereas here the models are independent. Because we are training all the models at a time, that is the reason why almost all the models are independent. Now, the third one, all the models will have an equal vote in final model. Similarly, because here in this case, we have to use the voting classifier anyhow. The third model is that it is a homogeneous weak learners. Both are homogeneous weak learners because the same data set, they are reading the data. But here, in case of the next one that is called as stacking, where we will see the heterogeneous weak learners, because here the data set is common. So here for bagging as well as boosting, the data set is common. From the same data set, what we will do at a time, the same data set is going to be given to the multiple models, but where we are using a technique called as resampling with replacement. When you are using with resampling and replacement, definitely it will be called as homogeneous data set. So for same bagging and boosting, we are using homogeneous weak learners. Then last one, example of bagging is nothing but random forest model. And example for boosting is nothing but AdaBoost. AdaBoost, XGBoost, there are so many boosting techniques that are available in market. Here, it aims to decrease the variance, not bias, because it is mainly concentrating the problem of reducing the overfitting. Here, it aims to decrease the bias, not the variance, because it works on the principle of underfitting. It works on the principle of overfitting. So it aims to decrease the variance. Here it aims to decrease the bias. So these are the two fundamental or major important techniques which are also called as homogeneous weak learners, in which we have or bagging as well as boosting. These are the two techniques. Now, the next one is nothing but stacking. After the discussion of this stacking technique, we will see some kind of healthcare applications in which we will use both bagging as well as boosting techniques. Okay. The next technique is nothing but stacking. Stacking is nothing but it is a heterogeneous weak learners. Whereas in the previous two cases, we have learned about homogeneous weak learners. But this is a special case where we are going to use heterogeneous weak learners. Suppose here what will happen is nothing but whatever may be the original data set we have, that original data set we are going to divide it into two parts, training as well as testing. 80% is training and 20% testing. What actually we will do is nothing but whatever may be the data set we have, we will divide that data set into some parts. Here we are not following the technique of resampling with replacement. Suppose if you have some 900 records or some 1000 records. Out of that 1000 records, so please keep 20% for testing. And 80% of records what we have, we will split that into some kind of groups. One group will be given to model 1, one group will be given to model 2, and another group is given to model 3. Here, these are the models which are called as base learners. Here, there is no restriction that you have to use the same kind of model. This model will be logistic regression, and this model will be KNN, and this model will be your decision tree. You can use different kinds of models. And what after training the model with after training with different kind of models, you can test all the models. And after testing the models, whatever may be the predictions you are going to get, that predictions along with the records you will maintain as a database. Suppose this model predicts, and this model predicts, and this model predicts, because 20% of data we are predicting are with 20% of records we are testing the model 1, model 2, and model 3. And whatever may be the predictions with model 1, whatever may be the predictions with model 2, and whatever may be the predictions with model 3, all the predictions we are going to give to a meta model. Meta model means these are the base models and this is the powerful model. Meta model. Suppose here also you can use some kind of decision tree or random forest like your wish. Or here if you use support vector mission, you can use decision tree here. So whatever may be the predictions from all these three models, those will be given to meta model. From the meta model, whatever may be your answer or whatever may be the predictions you are going to get, that will be your final answer. Suppose even though if any of this particular model was not predicted properly, here this meta model will take the responsibility of predicting that particular answer correctly. Is it clear or not? So this is the advantage of stacking. Here mainly bagging, boosting, and stacking are the techniques which are mostly used to solve the problem of overfitting as well as underfitting. Even though some machine learning algorithms are not suitable for one particular kind of data set, if unfortunately if you have used that particular model, definitely if it is the previous case where we will apply only one model, our output will get a very poor accuracy. But in case of stacking, bagging, boosting, we are using multiple models. Because of that particular multiple models, even though if one model predicts the answer wrongly, but the second model helps us to predict the output correctly. So this is what is called as stacking. Stacking means original data. Please see here. The original split into n folds. Because whatever may be the data we have, we will split our data into folds. And once after splitting the data into folds, each and every fold will be given to one particular model. Here there is no restriction that you have to use only 3 models. Because of the space sake and because of the diagram sake, I have written only 3 models. You can use any number of models. Once after training each and every individual, whatever may be the test data we have, we will test each and every model with this particular model. We will test each and every model with the test data. So whatever may be the predictions from model 1, whatever may be the predictions from model 2, and whatever may be the predictions from model 3, we will keep that particular data as predictions, and that entire data will be given as an input to meta model or given as training data to meta model. Then from that, if you again in this also we will split the data into 80 into 20. So 80% for training and 20% for testing. Once after training your meta model with these particular predictions, if you ask any question to your meta model, 99% of cases it is going to give the correct predictions. Because even if one model fails to predict the answer correctly, the rest models will help us to predict the answer correctly. Clear? Here we can use any number of models at base level learners, but this is nothing but a meta learner. So these are the 3 fundamental techniques which comes in the category of ensemble techniques. So our intention is that mostly we will use machine learning models where the data is very huge. And mostly we are preferring machine learning algorithms when the data is available in numerical format. So sometimes we can use machine learning models for image kind of data also. But in order to get good results, mostly we will use numerical data for machine learning models. So whenever you use a single machine learning model for the prediction, so most of the times those algorithms either they suffer with overfitting or underfitting problems because of lack of data, because of the efficacy of the model. Mostly we will face the problem of either overfitting or underfitting. In order to avoid or in order to overcome those things, we have a technique called as ensembling technique. In the ensembling technique, we have 4 different kinds of models. The first one is voting model. Again, in case of voting model also, we have two different kinds. One is hard voting and the second one is soft voting classifier. And the second one is nothing but your bagging technique. In case of bagging technique, instead of using a single model, we are going to give the data set to multiple models, and all these models are trained parallelly. And whatever may be the output from each and every model, that will be given to as an input a voting classifier. If it is a classification problem, mostly we will use hard voting. And if it is a regression kind of problem, we will use regression. Max voting for classification problem, average voting for regression problem. Then the second one is boosting. Here, boosting means whatever may be the output from one particular model. If a particular model fails to classify or predict the records correctly, so we will give more weightage to the records which were not classified correctly, and those will be given as an input to the model, second model, along with the regular data. So, and again, we will test that particular model. Some records will be classified correctly and some records will be classified wrongly. Whatever may be the records that are classified wrongly, that will be given as an input for the next level. So we will repeat this particular process until we will get almost all the records classified correctly. So this is a process which is called as sequential. So, and the previous process is parallel. Is it clear? This is what is called as boosting. The mostly used and the fundamental or first boosting technique is nothing but ADA boost technique. And the last one is nothing but stacking. In case of stacking, what we will do is that whatever may be the data set that is available for us, we will divide that entire data set into some kind of chunks or some kind of folds. And each and every fold will be given to one model. And the model will be predicts output on the test data. Whatever may be the predictions from this particular model, all these predictions will be given as an input to the meta model. And again, we will test the meta model with some number of records, and whatever may be the predictions from this particular model, that will be our final predictions. So here what actually we are doing is that we are trying to reduce the variance as well as bias, because high variance leads to overfitting and high bias leads to underfitting problem. So our ultimate motto is that we have to reduce the overfitting problem as well as underfitting problem. So this is the basic theory behind all these ensembling techniques. If right now what we will do is that we will see one kind of, if possible, I will explain all the 3 applications today. Otherwise, what we will do is that we will see the remaining applications when I have the next session on Friday. So I will stop sharing this particular PPT and I'll share the Google Colab where we'll have the code. Please give me 1 minute time. I think my screen is visible, and we will see a bagging technique for AI powered healthcare application, because you can use any particular data set as I am going to execute a small program which I am going to consider a data set called as diabetes data set. So initially, I think mostly we will execute almost all these programs with Python. So these are the standard library functions which are required for executing all these programs. And mostly here I'm using a classifier called as decision classifier. And you know that whenever we are executing some kind of machine learning algorithms, we require some standard library functions from Python. So I am importing pandas. And these are the 2 lines which are from Google Colab.import files. Means I have this particular data set on my desktop, diabetes.csv. So in order to get this particular CSV file in Google Colab, because I'm using Colab to execute fastly, to execute the code very fastly. So you can execute the same kind of code in your Jupyter notebook also, but I am executing this entire code in a Google Colab. So these are the initial commands that are required to load the file from our desktop to the Google Colab. So these are the predefined, I'm importing some kind of library functions. And here I am reading a data set which is called as diabetes.csv. So this data set was already stored in my library. So that's the reason why I'm selecting this particular file. So I think these are the attributes that are available in my diabetes data set. Pregnancies, glucose, blood pressure, skin thickness, all these are the attributes. Whereas there is one attribute which is called as outcome. That outcome we can call it as a target attribute. Rest all attributes we can call them as an independent attributes. Because based on all these attributes, we are going to find out whether the person is a diabetic patient or not. Here I have written one particular comment that is called as df.head, which is very much useful to display only the first 5 records. I think in this particular data set, I have downloaded this particular data set from Kaggle, and almost 768 records are available in this particular data set. So 768 records and out of that, in this there are 768 records, and there are, I think, 3 plus 3, 6, 9 attributes. Out of this 9 attribute, 1 attribute is the target attribute. Remaining 8 attributes are nothing but the independent attributes. So I have this particular data set in which df.head is useful in order to display the first 5 records. If you want to display the last 5 records, df.tail will be the command. Next. Because I have already executed this code and now I am describing. So now I am describing the entire data set. So there are altogether 768 records, the count of the records. So what is the mean? What is the standard deviation? What is the minimum? 25%, 60%, like that I have what is the maximum value? Like that I have described the entire data set. So these are all not that much important, but so next, df outcome.value, because in this I have altogether, I told you 500 plus 268, 768 records. Out of 768 records, 500 records are having the output as 0 because they are non-diabetic patients, and 268 records, 1 means diabetic patients. So this is the outcome of all the 768 records. Now actually what I am doing is that whatever may be the independent attributes that I am having, all the independent attributes I am storing with a variable called as x. And whatever may be the dependent attribute I have, that is nothing but my target attribute. I am storing this particular target attribute in a variable called as y. So x and y are my 2 variables. Here I am dropping outcome. Dropping outcome means I am not storing, or I am storing except outcome all the attributes in x, and only that y consists of the outcome or attribute called as outcome. Is it clear? So this is nothing but I am storing the entire outputs, or sorry, entire attributes in x as well as y. Y is the target attribute, whereas x is nothing but the independent attribute. So, and the next one is nothing but standard scalar, because one particular range I need to convert all these values. So I am considering only the 3 records, not all the 768 records. If I write 768 records, then it is going to display all the standard scalar values for all the records. Now, the major thing here is that we have to divide our data set into training as well as testing. So here I am dividing the entire 768 records into training as well as testing. Is it clear or not? So here, this is the particular statement which is going to divide our data set into training data set as well as testing data set. That is the reason why I am importing this train test split from sklearn. So this is the one which is actually used to divide our data set into training as well as testing. So here we are using a command called as stratify. Stratify means it is going to consider the standard splitting ratio as 70:30. You can write this as 0.2 or 0.8 or so if you write here, it is 0.2 means 20% for testing and 80% for training. So this is what is nothing but the standard training and testing splitting of train test data, because 70% of records we are using for training and 30% of records we are using for testing. So that is the reason why X-train shape 568, because 8 attributes are there in X, because altogether there are 9 attributes. 1 attribute we are considering as a target attribute. Remaining 8 attributes are there in X. Out of 768 records, 70% means 576 records we are using for training. And this is nothing but your test split. 192 records we are using for testing. Is it clear or not? So this is the second one. Or here we can say that here we have split the data into 75:25 thing, I think so. So counts. So out of Y train, Y means output. There are two outputs only, 0 as well as 1. Out of the training data, means training, how many records training? 576. Out of 576 training data, 375 records are with value 0 and 201 records with value 1. Is it clear or not? So this is what is called as the train test split, and we are simply describing the training as well as testing procedure. Now, here actually what we are doing is that we are selecting cross-validation score, because I think everybody knows what is k-fold cross-validation. So with k-fold cross-validation, you can split your data set into k different number of folds. That is the reason why we are splitting our entire data set into k folds, and we are testing with a decision tree classifier. Here we are using the regular kind of coding technique, not it is like a bagging coding technique. We will see the difference between those two things. Without using bagging, what is your output? And with using bagging, what is your output? Here, cross-validation, because you have divided the entire data set into 5 parts, each part will be given to one data set, one decision tree classifier. So here cross-validation is 5, means I am splitting my entire data set into 5 parts, where X is the train data and Y is the test data. So here the machine learning algorithm, what I'm using is nothing but my decision tree algorithm. So after using the decision tree algorithms on 5 different chunks or 5 different groups of data, the first decision tree algorithm produces the output as 0.71 accuracy as. The second decision tree accuracy is 0.68, means 68%. Third decision tree accuracy is 72. Fourth one is 80 and fifth one is 73. So average, if you do the mean of all these things. So here I am not using any kind of bagging technique. Simply I am using regular machine learning decision tree algorithms. The accuracy is about mean accuracy. Mean of all these things is going to be 0.70%. The mean of all these things. Now, the same thing I am applying with the bagging technique. So bagging classifier, where decision tree classifier, n estimator is nothing but 100, means 100 decision trees I am using, and max sampling is 80%. What is the meaning of here max sampling is 80% means? Here I told you that resampling with replacement. So means 80% of records I am giving to the first model. After giving that 80% of model with the first record, again I am replacing that 80% of records in the original data set, and I am again giving 80% to the second model. That is what we have seen. So in the last PPT, when I am explaining, I told you about resampling with replacement. Here actually what is 0.8 means, out of the available records, 80% of records will be first given to model 1. Model 1 is trained with 80% of records, but these 80% of records again resampled with replacement, and they are again will be, some of them will be again considered for the second model. So OB score means this is for accuracy finding, and we are doing the X train and X split. See, the accuracy which we are getting with bagging is 0.75, whereas the accuracy with regular machine learning approach is nothing but 0.70. This is the basic difference. Means here whatever the accuracy you are going to get is nothing but 0.70. Here whatever the accuracy you are getting is 75%. One thing is that here we are going to increase the accuracy of the model with bagging technique. So I think sometimes 75% accuracy is not that much good. But the thing is that here we are training our model with only 768 records. This is what is called as training accuracy. When coming to the text accuracy, so bag model with text accuracy is almost 77%. The test data is more than the training data, because we are not sometimes why training data is same means, if you have 4 or 5 decision tree algorithms, so you are using a technique called as resampling with replacement. Sometimes because of that particular reason, the training accuracy may be reduced, but overall testing accuracy is increased. So testing accuracy is increased means the overfitting problem is somewhat reduced. So this is what is called as bagging model, because you can apply the same kind of coding technique for somewhat complicated kind of data sets. But here, whatever may be the data set, I have considered that data set is very simple. So it consists of only 700 records, and it is simply a diabetic data set. You can download so many data sets which are available, which comes in the category of healthcare problem, heart disease data set, breast cancer data set, so brain tumor data set. If they are available in numerical format, you can use all these kind of data sets for bagging as well as boosting problems. So I am repeating the same kind of problem. And if I do the same with random forest algorithm, what will happen? I have shown here. Somewhat, I want to explain with voting classifier. The same problem I am executing with voting classifier. When you want to execute with voting classifier, you can use the same model. Otherwise, we can execute different kind of models. Here I am importing 3 different kind of models. One is navigation, and the second one is decision tree, and the third one is logistic regression. So I am using 3 different kinds of machine learning models. You can use same machine learning model, or you can use different kind of machine learning model. When you are using for stacking problem, definitely you have to use different machine learning models. So here I have used these 3 things, and this is the particular metric which is going to calculate the accuracy. And likewise, we have to import the voting classifier also. So here I have 3 different classifier. The classifier one is nothing but Gaussian NB. Gaussian NB is nothing but Navi-based classifier. And the second one is decision tree classifier. And the third one is logistic regression classifier. So what will happen is that if we apply voting classifier, the first classifier is Gaussian, the second classifier is decision tree, and the third classifier is nothing but random forest. And the voting classifier which you are using is nothing but a hard classifier. Hard classifier means it is a classification problem. And what actually it will do is that here it is going to predict the outcome for all the 192 records. Because as we have 768 records in total number, out of the 768, some 560 records are for training and 192 records are for testing. So these are the outcomes of all those 192 records. So what will actually happen is that whatever may be the output of Gaussian NB, Navi base, and whatever may be the output of decision tree, and whatever may be the output of random forest for a particular record, out of the output, all the outputs, we are going to use hard, means we are going to take the maximum voting. Suppose if your Gaussian Navi base predicts the output as 0, decision tree also predicts the output as 0, and random forest predicts the output as 1. Out of these 3, the maximum voting is in between Gaussian and decision tree, 0 and 0. So that is the reason we will conclude the output as 0. If all the 3 model predicts the output of second record as 1, the answer will be 1. Likewise, the output of each and every individual records which were there in the test sample will be displayed like this with the help of hard voting classifier. So this is the place. If you write here soft voting classifier, but thing is that you have to use some kind of regressors. Here logistic regression basically we usually use for classification, but you can use support vector regressor, you can use logistic linear regression, and you can use decision tree regressor. Then definitely you can use what here, soft voting classifier. So this is what is called as the application of your voting classifier. How to apply the voting classifier. And after applying this, we are going to calculate the accuracy of each and every individual model. So there is some error in this. CLF is not defined. So I have not executed this particular part. That is the problem. So these are the parts which I have not executed. Till this particular part I have executed. Then I have to execute the bagging model. These are the scores, and this is the mean score. And so these are the accuracies with all the 3 models. 0.74 is the accuracy with Gaussian Navi base, and 0.70 is the accuracy with the decision tree, and 0.76 is the accuracy with random forest models. So clear. So this is how we can apply the coding for both bagging as well as with the classifier, voting classifier. So after calculating all these things, we can apply a hard classifier because it is the thing which actually we are applying for classification problem. That is the reason why I'm applying hard voting here. So that is nothing but maximum voting. So out of the available options, I will use the maximum max vote classifier for predicting my final output. So this is the simple execution of a program called as bagging. Simple execution. So this is the coding, and here I have taken a data set which is nothing but heart diabetes data set. You can use you can download the data set which is related to medical problem, and again it can be applicable to any kind of data set. So this is the simple coding technique with which you can execute the bagging procedure, and this is the procedure of bagging. And in the bagging procedure, we have finally applied the voting classifier also in order to get the best outcome. Is it clear or not? So it is already 8:50. Suresh Garu, shall I continue the next code or we'll go for question answer session?
Sir, how much time it will take for this one next code? Just 5 minutes will take, sir. Hello?
Suresh Garu,
Sir,
we will
sir.
do one thing. We will do one thing. We'll have another session on Friday. So we will
Okay.
explain these two codes in the Friday session, sir.
Okay, better to conclude with the question and answer, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Right. Sir, Srinivas, sir.
Yes.
You can find questions in chat window, sir.
Yeah. So random forest is one type of bagging technique. Yes, surely it is correct. Yeah, definitely. And I will share the code with Suresh Garu. Suresh Garu will share the code because it is only Google Colab. I can share with anyone. Yeah, surely. And we can anyone show example for deep learning I will show a deep learning example in the next class. And definitely we will work it on some neural network kind of thing. Yes, sir. Definitely. And the next, and again, we'll have a session on Friday. So I will show the boosting technique as well as stacking code, and I will explain you one deep learning technique in the next class. As we have the concept of optimizers in the next session, definitely we will see one neural network code in that. So which comes in deep learning module. Yes. You require it for pulmonary disease. Okay. If possible, I'll search for the data set. Otherwise, if you have the data set, please share with Suresh Garu. Suresh Garu will send it to me. So I will work on that particular data set and show you the example. So is there any other queries? So one particular suggestion from my end is that if you are the people who were unable to get proper result with a single machine learning algorithm, please try to do your problems with ensembling techniques. Definitely, ensembling techniques, we are going to produce results which are very much accurate than the results which we are producing with regular machine learning models. So ultimately, some sort of problems, these ensembling techniques are giving very high and accurate results. So my sincere suggestion is that some kind of problems, please try to use ensembling techniques instead of all the by using a single machine learning model. Okay, for TB, any data set, please. So I'll try to give it, sir, because some of our colleagues are also working on this particular problem. I'll try and get it out. And if possible, I'll send or share the data set with Suresh Garu. Because instead of using neural networks for some kind of problems, you can use this particular stacking problem or ensembling, bagging, boosting techniques so that they also produce very good results. Because I already told you that there is one fundamental drawback with the machine learning model is that, so sometimes the computational devices which we are using are not that much suitable for neural network problems. Sometimes you will use some kind of networks like ResNet, DenseNet, and then VGG16, VGG19. So if you use those kind of neural networks, if you give an input and in order to get the output, it will take nearly 24 hours or 28 hours of time. Sometimes for some outputs, we have to wait for more than 25 hours. So in such case, definitely you can go, this particular ensembling techniques will be an option for you. So I'll share my details in the chat box in my mail ID. Sir, this ensembling techniques purely for machine learning models. This ensembling techniques. So in DL, definitely it is in your hand, because in case of deep learning, everything we will do with the help of neurons only. So we have so many kinds of layers. If you want to get more accuracy, you please try to increase the number of hidden layers in case of deep learning. That is the reason why we have already so many models are available in market. VGG 16, you have 16 hidden layers. VGG 19, you have 19 hidden layers, and you can develop your own model also with the number of hidden layers of your wish. So, but ensembling techniques purely we are using for this particular machine learning models, and mostly this ensembling model, random forest is going to produce the better results when compared to all the models, other models. But if it is a case of stacking, you can use the combination of different models. As how to choose model for ensemble in DL. So that is what I'm telling, sir. So in case of deep learning, so definitely you can increase the accuracy, because in case of deep learning, one advantage is that we will never face the problem of underfitting. Still with deep learning, we are facing the problem of overfitting. So this particular problem can be avoided by adding some hidden layers in your neural network. But when it is the case of machine learning, we have an option called as ensembling technique. But it is the case of deep learning, you can solve the problems by simply adding more number of hidden layers. But ultimately the problem is that you require more high performance devices to solve the problems.
Yes, any more queries from the participants?
I will try, because we don't have that much time to show all the applications. I will note down all these things, and if possible, I will show you on Friday class. I am taking the inputs. I'm noting down all these queries, and I will share. If possible, I will show code for the problems what you are asking.
Yes, dear participants, I think Sir has come up to the end of the session, and Sir will definitely note down your queries. And because we have another session from the same resource person on Friday, definitely he is going to answer all the queries. So
the thing is that they are asking some kind of code implementations, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Definitely, I
That
think
is the
we can continue in the next session.
Next session we can continue, madam.
Yes, sir. I think we have a next session on Friday, sir.
Yeah, Friday 6
Yes.
to 7:30, ma'am.
Yeah, definitely.
So in that, definitely I'll execute some kind of codes which you are asking.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Yes, sir. So we are truly grateful to you, sir, for contributing significantly to this FDP through your valuable insights and engaging the presentation. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
And we look forward to continue the next session on Friday, sir.
Thank you, sure, ma'am.
Yes.